Hello, and welcome to Horrific Tales. In this show, we like to celebrate the creations of independent authors and aspiring writers. Please like, subscribe, and share these episodes to help get our friends as much exposure as possible. We would also appreciate it if you'd support our artists by following them on their independent platforms and by purchasing their works. Details on how to do so will be in the show notes. Today's horrific tale is a piece submitted to us by Cat Holiday. Come join us now as we read to you an excerpt from Race the Devil. The mist had turned into a light rain, and we reached the entrance to 96. I turned on the windshield wipers on low, and we both peered down the slick ramp. There wasn't another car in sight. But way down there, where the ramp met the highway, we both could see this one lone guy standing on the side of the road under a burned out lamppost. Even though he was cast in shadow, I could tell that he was a tall dude. He was wearing a dark trench coat. I couldn't see what color it was. He was looking right up the ramp at us. The guy stuck out what looked like a thumb. I felt a chill run down through me. "That dude looks fucked," Kevin burped. "What the fuck is he doing standing in the rain down there? He thinks he's gonna get a ride out of us? Ha!" He brought his knees up to his stomach and cackled with foolish exaggeration. Then, suddenly sounding sober, Kevin snorted from the one-hitter and tossed it back to me. "What say we give him the business? Let's fake him out." I knew what he meant. It was a cruel joke usually played on friends, just to jerk them around a bit. If you're of a certain age, you've probably done it yourself. You drive just past your mate, and when they'd start toward the car, you'd peel off real fast and then stop just a little further ways down the road. Of course, they'd get all pissed and run at you like you were going to leave them behind. And then you do it again. Juvenile, to be sure, but an effective way to get your friends goat. Inevitably, you just pull over and let them in. But tonight, Kevin wasn't talking about anything like that. He wanted to fuck this guy over and leave him flat. "Sure," I said. Figured either way I wasn't going to let this soaking wet bum in for a ride. Let Kevin have his fun. We started down the ramp at slow speed, creeping like we were going to stop for the guy. Kevin pushed the button and unrolled the passenger window even more, like he was going to say something to him. As we approached the dude, the guy held out his hand as if in greeting, or to even just slow us down more. His hand lightly slid across the passenger side fender. Kevin and I had both heard a high scratching sound and looked at each other like, "What the fuck?" Now, I'm starting to feel really nervous. So as I pass him just a little bit. And Kevin too. He was also giving off this really strange vibe. Out of nowhere, he suddenly throws his half-filled MD bottle out the window. It must have shattered right in front of the guy. He screams out at him, "Hey asshole, if you want to ride, you're going to have to catch us first." He looks back over at me and shouts, "Hit it, Johnny." Well, I stomp on the pedal, and I just feel. I could hear the wheels spinning, I could smell the rubber burning. But, like I said, the entrance ramp was pretty slick. I just spun out at first, and I wasn't going anywhere. Kevin's cigarette fell from his mouth. He turned white as a sheet, and he's got both of his hands on the window's actuator, as if he can't make it go up any faster. I looked over my right shoulder. I just saw a shadow attempting to grasp out at the car. Like a sadistic teacher's nail on a chalkboard, the scraping sound became even more intolerable, and Kevin and I both heard him shout to us, "Stop! Stop! You owe me! You owe me!" I can only say, it was not the voice of a dirty old bum. It was low and deep, more like a growling. It was loud. It was so very loud that I thought my head would explode. It was the voice of the devil. "You owe me!" And his words seemed to reverberate throughout the car and into my very bones. Wavering slightly, the LTD finally caught pavement and shot forward. As a prankster, normally you just pull over and maybe do it again, or you'd simply let your now aggrieved passenger aboard, but not in this case. No. I couldn't imagine ever stopping again. Kevin was thrown back as we accelerated, drunk and wasted. His head rolled toward me and his tongue lolled out of his mouth. "That was the devil," he cried. "The devil is out there," he spat. "Well, we just left the devil in the dirt," I retorted with no confidence, knowing the road was open ahead. My eyes were glued to the dual rear-view mirrors that Daniel had been bragging on. Kevin's eyes moved directly to the passenger side mirror. Through the cold April rain, we both saw the bum at the same time. Earlier, Kevin had turned up the heat to full blast, but inexplicably, our breath was now visible in the air. You could feel the temperature drop in the whole car. An atomized spray of ice emitted from both of our mouths. The dude started running right after us. All herky-jerky at first, definitely irregular, but like a professional runner or a large horse just out of the gate, its motions suddenly became more fluid. Even above the sound of the racing engine and our acceleration, we both could hear him advancing on us. We could feel it. Kevin's eyes were starting to bug out of his head, and I can only imagine that I didn't look much different. "He's coming up on my side," Kevin blurted. "He's coming!" "You've got to go faster, Johnny. You've got to!" He actually began to cry. I could hardly keep control of the car. I was spontaneously crying too. Without even looking, I instinctually veered left into the fast lane. I was already going 80 miles an hour. Over the many years, again and again, I've thanked the powers that be that there were no other cars on the road that night. I didn't know what was after us. I just wanted to get as far away from it as fast as I could. I wanted to look back over my shoulder, but I was too afraid. I knew it was there. I knew it was coming. I couldn't even handle what I was seeing in the mirrors. The highway behind us suddenly grew brighter, like we were being chased by a hot rod or something that was throwing off sparks and flames. It was running so fast that it was throwing off flame. Kevin was seeing everything that I was, or at least I thought he was. He again drew his knees back up to his chest, but this time he wasn't joking. He was crunching himself into a tight ball. His eyes were glazed, tears were starting to freeze on his face. "Johnny, I want to go home," he moaned, and he turned away from the mirror. "He's coming," he quietly squealed. The image that I saw in the mirror was getting bigger and clearer. It was gaining on us. The incessant clomping of its feet, its hooves. It was just behind Kevin in the passenger's window. It must have shed its coat, as it was now bare-chested and streaming steam and fire in the cold rain. While it closed in on us, it continued to scratch at the side of the car's rear window trying to gain purchase. "You owe me, Llama. You owe me." He took grab for the passenger side mirror and pulled it off the car like it was nothing. I could hear the clanking as it fell behind us. "Hey Johnny, the guy says you owe him!" Kevin was losing his mind. I couldn't believe it when the thing sped up directly across from him. Then, like it was standing still, it delicately tapped a long claw-like finger on his window. I had to look. Kevin's pleading eyes stared right back at me, away from the grotesque monstrosity. "I need to talk to you now, Loma. Hear me?" it thundered. "He wants to talk to you, Johnny," Kevin hysterically cried. "Well, I don't want to talk to him." I tried to keep my foot on the pedal and my eyes on the road, but it was impossible. "No, man, you should do it. Maybe he just wants a ride." Kevin looked like he was about to die. "You should probably hear what he has to say. It could be important." And his right finger crawled up to the window button. "Don't open that window, you asshole," I screamed. Kevin fumbled blindly for the right button, as he refused to look. I didn't know if he was going to let the fucker in or not. I just gazed in disbelief. My co-pilot's window began to retract completely. "Hey, devil!" Kevin shouted at the windshield. "Fuck you!" And then he turned to the right and looked that devil straight in the eyes. And he went right ahead and puked a spray of blue projectile vomit so abrupt and violently expelled that it would have made the actual Linda Blair blush. It hit that cocksucker right square in the face, and he screamed like someone had lit his whole head on fire. "You dare! You dare!" We heard it gurgle and spit. Fuming, it fell behind. "You owe me!" It screamed out to us from the rain and night. Kevin had done the job all right, but his leather jacket was now covered in blue puke that had big globs of coke mixed in it. He rolled up the window and laughed like he'd gone too far, and he slobbered. I puked in the devil's face. I did it. He smelled like he'd pissed himself too. I actually puked in the devil's face. He continued to laugh like a loon. He was losing it. He was gonna pass out. I puked in Daniel's face, he finally screamed. And then he just quietly slumped in his seat. Daniel's face? What the hell did he mean by that? There's no way that thing could have been Daniel. There was no way. But I'll be damned if it didn't bear a strong resemblance to him. Daniel? I looked up in the rearview mirror that hung in front of me, and then quickly to my left at the remaining outside mirror. The receding figure was still sparking off the concrete and giving off steam like it was a blown locomotive or something. Wrapped in smoke, rain, and darkness, I couldn't make out any clear image. I just kept my foot on the gas. When I managed to look down at the speedometer, we were going 105. We weren't going to be playing any video games tonight. I slowed down and glided over to the far right lane and took the next exit. I was beside myself. I crossed a bridge that went back over to the westbound service drive above the freeway. I just wanted to get us back home. Part of me wanted to pull over and assess the car, but I was still too shaken. And seeing the actual damage would only validate and confirm our experience. And I still wasn't ready for that. But whatever the thing was, we were now heading straight back toward it. Only this time, we'd be above it. Kevin began to rouse from his stupor. Maybe from our vantage point, we could see it down there, where it still might be on the road. Or maybe we wouldn't see it at all. Kevin blurted out, "What? Hey man, what do you think you're doing? Don't go back there. That thing could be crawling up the side of the freeway right now." Wasted or not, I immediately knew that he was right. I turned to the next street and slowly headed north into an unfamiliar neighborhood. "Kevin, we've got to get back to our side of town." "Well, we ain't going anywhere near the freeway," he began to cry. "I puked in the devil's face. He's gonna want to kill me." Disgruntled, I said, "Yeah, and he pissed all over my seats too. Must be quite the night for you." The car's cabin began to warm up once again. Kevin was a total mess. Trying to stay alert, we quietly zigzagged through the neighborhoods and worked the LTD back west. The light rain had turned back into a cool mist and a low fog. I flipped the windshield wipers off. We started seeing street signs that we recognized. The car was starting to act a little funny. Steam began to rise from the front end. I had a bad feeling that something was about to blow. I looked over at Kevin, who appeared to be passed out again, slumped in his seat. "We're closer to my house," I told him. "This thing sounds like it's gonna die. Let's just get to my mother's house and park it." We came down Perth Street and turned left onto Humble. Ma's place was only about 4 houses down and on the right. I figured that I was in the clear. Home sweet home and all of that. Elated, I sang out, "Hey Kevin, wake up man, we made it, we..." Suddenly, there was an incredibly loud popping sound. Something came flying up from around the floor mats and traveled between me and Kevin and went right through the roof of the car. I don't know what it was. Kevin bolted awake, completely startled. We looked at each other like we'd both been shot. The engine died right there and we came gliding to a full stop right smack dab in front of my mother's old house. Kevin must have thought that this was hysterical, as he once again broke into that exaggerated, mullish laughter that I'd always found so aggravating. "You blew it up," he guffawed. "You fucking blew it up in less than 24 hours. I couldn't believe it. It seemed the entire last hour of my life was nothing but a nightmare. It couldn't have been real. We opened the doors and stepped out in front of my mother's house. I walked around the once pristine car. The passenger side looked like it was sideswiped by a brick wall. Kevin looked up from the damage and once again maniacally laughed. "I puked in the devil's face!" he cried. "I puked in the devil's face!" If he was the one that puked in the devil's face, then why did I suddenly feel so sick? I felt like a marked man. On shaky legs, I wobbled onto the front yard and leaned on a tree. There, by the gas lamp, I spewed my own seemingly endless stream of blue. I fell to my knees. Kevin continued with his faux laughter. Hey man, what did you do? Lose your keys? You need any help finding them there? Like I said, most of my friends were nothing but delinquent assholes. Well, we hope you enjoyed our latest horrific tale. If you'd like to keep up to date, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page. Also, follow us on our social media pages. You can also show your support for the channel by going to our merchandise store, picking up some items there. Please also take a moment to support our contributing friends who kindly lend their talents to this show. Check out the links in the description as to how you can do this. Until next time, keep it creepy, keep it horrific.